Happy New Year. Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host, Paul. This is the third video I'm making today about Stranger Things. But, sometimes when there's a big event, we do these videos where we get someone like Matt on, who's part of our team. He does a lot of writing, research, and editing for us, basically makes a lot of the videos that you watch very, very good. We kind of talk about all the spoiler stuff in it, give our general thoughts, because when we're doing breakdowns, we're kind of very much in the middle of it and not really having time to fully process things. So Matt, I've come up with this system, right? I've kind of pioneered it where you basically assign a number to a level that you think the season is. So like 10 would be great, 1 would be terrible. I've kind of come up with this. Out of 10, what would you have given the finale?
Just the finale episode or the final season?
Yeah, and then do the final season. We'll do two numbers.
Probably about an 8 for the final episode, and then the season's about a good 5, I would say.
Really, that low?
Yeah, it's more like in the middle of the road sort of thing. I think it was the 3 episodes I've told you before that were just atrocious. Apart from the Frank Darabont episode, I think was the first one in Volume 2, which was really good. But I think Jamie Campbell-Bower has really kind of carried this season on his back as the villain. But yeah, it is kind of very mid, unfortunately.
I think I'm the opposite. I think I didn't enjoy the finale that much. Using my patented number system, I think I'd probably give the finale about a 6 or a 7. I found the first hour really difficult to get through. I don't know if that's because I'm like working and trying to figure things out, but just watching it, there was lots of things that wasn't really adding up. Like, why is there water in the upside down in a tank when we know the rules are like all the lakes are dry, there's no moisture there? And I really did struggle with that. I thought even Vecna's plan, I was like, when they get to Earth, what are they actually going to do? Because the Mind Flayer got completely wrecked, mate. And I think if it showed up, like wrecked by kids, and I think if it showed up, the army would have just absolutely obliterated it. So I did kind of struggle with that. But like stuff like Volume 2, I don't think I was as harsh on it as other people were, because I was a bit disappointed in Volume 1, and that kind of set my expectations. And I think a lot
the
of
opposite.
I think a lot of the feeling around this show tends to be what your expectations were. Like the Bylers are going mental because they were expecting Will and Mike to hook up, but because I didn't have that expectation when it didn't happen, didn't bother me. But there are other things I had expectations for that did not end up happening, and the fact it's been 10 years almost as well, it's been a bit of a weird one. Things like Dr. K sort of just abandoning,
wasted.
like not getting Mr. Clark got built up, people thought he was going to die, didn't do anything in the finale really. I mean, they had a scene where he was in a clock tower with Erica.
They were watching, that was it.
And stuff like that. I feel like it was very underdeveloped. When it came down to it, I thought the finale was very by the numbers.
It
wasn't terrible. I don't think it was the disaster that Game of Thrones was, where it's like, we will make Bran the Broken King because Bran tells the best stories. Like, you know what I mean? Mike didn't stab 11 in the back to save the Upside Down and destroy it.
All of a sudden.
It wasn't like that. So it wasn't that bad. But I thought it was very by the numbers, and there's been so many videos. And even things like them making 11 do the Batman thing, where you think she's dead, and then there's like a little clue at the end. That all felt like stuff we'd been talking about earlier in the weeks and the months, saying like, oh, I wonder if they're going to do this. So I don't think it was terrible, but also didn't do anything that I thought wasn't by the numbers. And there's, when I've put that out on Twitter, there's been a lot of comments saying stuff like, oh, well, this was always going to be the Goonies sort of ending, it's not something like where. But going back to that first season, it's quite dark tonally. Like, it's about a missing kid. There's a big police investigation. The way it's shot as well, I think if you watch that first season, you don't expect it to go the Hollywood route that it did kind of around season 3 and season 4.
The powers, her jumping kind of did take me out of a bit, but I did like the Mind Flayer having a corporal form and looking like that. But we've done so much it at the moment. I was just like, this is just it. It is just it.
I think that I was saying today as well. I think if Welcome to Derry hadn't just released the month before and been so good,
Yeah,
then I would have felt better about this season. But I mean, that did so many things so well. Like even the way, Rich's death and that was absolutely
yeah.
devastating. Callie, that's the only person they killed. Even
Thank
as soon
God.
as as soon as Steve fell off the thing and Jonathan caught him, I knew they weren't pulling punches. They were
Yeah,
pulling punches. Sorry, I knew they
yeah.
were going to play it safe
That big
because we
gap
talked.
as well with the
Yeah,
black. I was like,
yeah,
is it buffering? Is it what's going on?
yeah, and just the way they set that up in Volume One, where it was kind of like, oh, they're racing to the top of the tower. It
Yeah.
feels like one of them's going to fall at some point. That when they didn't capitalize off that, that's when I knew. Um, so yeah, what was your high moments in the finale, and what were your low moments?
I think I really liked the ending where the kids were it kind of this was the right side up, and then the first episode
Yeah,
I think was the upside down, and it kind of mirrored it really well. I really like the fact that they did the whole Ravenloft thing with Vecna going there, and then they played that, and I like the fact they were still playing it. Then the Holly and her kids, the new class came in. I thought it was really
yeah.
really well done. I
I
love
mean, it
the
basically opens how the whole show starts with the whole D&D game.
Yeah, and I really like the whole thing with Henry Creel. I do think they kind of were a bit hamstrung with the fact that you had to watch the play on the West End to really kind of
Yeah,
get it. And I think they really kind of, I don't know why they didn't do a Hamilton and do a pro shot recording of it, have that out in the God knows how many years between the seasons it's been, and then we can, but yeah, otherwise you won't pay £150 a ticket for the West End. But yeah,
yeah,
I thought that was Henry Creel's was and I love how simple the ending was. Sometimes it's just okay to have a simple death of the villain with a beheading. That is,
yeah. I mean, very slowly beheading. She was literally thrown in for
yeah,
10 minutes. I would have grabbed the axe off her and be like, "Come on, pass it over here, love." And I'm not sexist. I'm not saying that because I'm sexist. But yeah, I do. I haven't seen the play, but I've researched it a shitload. I don't think the casual person's going to go out there and do that. And obviously, the only places you can really watch it are New York or London.
yeah,
And considering this is a worldwide event, I totally agree. I really do think that they should have filmed it and put it out there in those years.
yeah. So
Um,
when I was in the briefcase, you're like, who's this guy? He's just absolutely
yeah,
mullered. It's like Indiana
yeah,
Jones and the Last Crusade when he finds the robbers. It was very much
yeah,
like that. And obviously that I just realized why that was the movie at the end of
yeah.
this. It's
Makes
weird to
sense.
watch something I'm not writing or working on or anything like that. But yeah, it is a mistake because my wife was like, what, what is that? I'm like, well, let me explain to you the play I was going to take to you, but it was too expensive.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of I think with the Vecna in general, they obviously didn't have Vecna in from the beginning. He wasn't the big bad all
Yeah,
along. So they built the Mind Flayer up, but then
yeah,
they introduced it as a new big bad in Vecna. But they also kind of wanted to still have the Mind Flayer in some ways, and there
yeah,
was a lot of confusion around kind of. I mean, I've talked about this story to death about how I interpreted season 4 as the Mind Flayer being in control and got so much shit for it. I deleted the video, but I think that there were the clues there, and obviously the way they've done it in the end, my interpretation was right. I was right all along. But they didn't. It felt like they were struggling between having a big bad who was just an ominous evil thing, but also a redeemable villain, and they didn't
yeah,
really know which one they wanted to go with. And it kind of left things a bit messy. We always
yeah,
have these problems with things where you get a really overpowered villain and a bad guy, and like for ages you're like, how are we gonna beat him? And then when it comes down to it, they're normally dispatched quite quickly. I remember
yeah.
this with Vamp in Metal Gear Solid 2. There was loads of cutscenes of him
What
killing
throwback?
people. Oh, mate, that was the first time I saw it, and I was like, how the hell am I going to beat this guy when it
Yeah,
comes to
yeah, I
it?
remember
And
that.
then you get the boss fight, and it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
And I've always kind of noticed this, but just I don't think it was a fully fleshed out finale. There were lots of things that I had questions about, like where's the Demogorgons? Where's the Demogog dogs? Why don't they just show up and wreck everyone?
yeah. I
And
think
there was
the
so sorry, go
oh,
on.
yeah, I do like the fact that Henry Creel wasn't redeemed at the end. He
Yeah,
wasn't like a victim. He was like, they're like, oh, you don't have to do this. Like, actually, I
loved
really
it.
want to kill kids. I love it.
Yeah,
Like, that's
yeah.
that's my thing, mate.
Yeah, which I mean, the character design is great. He's very imposing. it's just in the end, I thought he got dispatched pretty quickly with just 11, just basically holding him up and then pushing him back. And then Will comes in and obviously helps as well.
Yeah.
But even just the pacing, I know Will having to accept his sexuality and come out was a big way that he was going to defeat Vecna. But I don't know how much he was necessarily even needed in that final battle. He obviously
seems
did his
roasted.
bit.
I was like, why do you? Like, I don't mind him. Like, obviously, it's one of his character beats, and it was a big thing in the '80s. Like, if you read it and all those books at the time, it's a very homophobic time. But I don't think they handled it. They handled it kind of a bit by the numbers, as you said with him. And you think, well, why has he made this big thing about coming out being his superpower when all he did was just
He didn't. He
didn't do anything.
And I think there was far too many characters to service every one of them correctly. Dr. K is going to be my perfect example of, like, she had a big, massive build-up, then caught them at the end, and you were like, oh, shit, what's going to happen? And then 11 just does what she does, and then K's just gone from the story. It's like, oh, well, see you guys later. Like, what? How are you not arresting them for all the illegal stuff they've done over the past...
pregnant women? Did they all blow up?
Yeah, pregnant women all dead. So just there's little things that they seeded throughout, and I know that the fan theory community on this has been absolutely mental. I've been
crazy on TikTok.
So many videos. Yeah, I posted one today where there was the lever at the radio station. It had a grey arrow that turned to red, and there was the roundabout that had a yellow bit that had turned grey as well, and people were coming up with all these crazy theories about how it all linked together. And I got the end at them, and I was just saying, I think it's going to be a bit more simple than that.
People are too theory brained.
Yeah, well, we've had that ourselves where we've been very theory brained. Yeah, and we've been let down so many times that we're just kind of used to it being. And so when people were sending me, I was like, trust me, it'll be a lot more straightforward than that. I think the internet is probably a better writer or coming up with better stuff than they are. But yeah. I was just expecting a bit more, for years and years we've talked about all the big deaths. There's probably going to be, there's been the cast interviews where they're like, someone's going to die. And considering we're coming from a show where, like, Billy's died and Eddie's died, and you've had big, popular characters. Exactly. Samwise as well, all these, like, people who, people didn't like Billy that much, but he was a big character. And obviously, he was like an antagonist in that season, but they still killed him off. And, Sam, they killed.
And the Russian dude as well.
Aston, yeah, Russian dude.
I just don't know what characters. I think, killing off Eddie was just, I just don't get what they were thinking. Obviously, they didn't know how popular he was going to be, but you could see how much people are going to gravitate to that character. But then he would have been like the mentor thing, but they had that with Steve. But I think they, at least if you're going to kill off the cool character, at least kill off one of the party, at least someone.
The plot armor was insane. Even Nancy, when she got pushed into the rocks, I thought, they're actually going to kill Nancy. And they didn't end up doing any of that. It kind of always was the power of friendship will defeat evil and darkness.
Most 80s thing ever.
Yeah, so... Now, while we've been talking about how bad it was, I did think the 18-month time jump and the epilogue with all that stuff was, really well handled. I didn't cry, but I can understand why people did. And I think all that was pretty well put together.
I love Dustin's speech. It was just so cool seeing him. Then they had the trooper play and everything. I was like, yes, go on.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice send-off for these kids. This whole thing's been a coming-of-age story, and just seeing them at the end there when they're all, like, much older. They're, like, probably older than me at this point. It has been a good journey, but it's just... Again, it's that thing where I think they set expectations so high by teasing so many things, and even online now, there's people being like, "Well, what did this mean? Who unlocked the door for Will?" And there was like some promotional thing they put out where it was like all the letters on the wall, and the caption was like, "Pay close attention to figure this out," and just stuff like that was built up and teased as being like, you have to be watching this show. That there's no detail that isn't important in this series, and you have the expectations that it's going to be like Dark, where it's just so well written and so intricate that if you even fall asleep for like 10 minutes during an episode, there's going to be lots of things you don't understand. So you're kind of good finale, bad season mostly.
I think,
whereas I'm fine season, fine finale.
I think the finale was just aggressively competent. I'm glad it didn't like do a Game of Thrones. and
Yeah.
that. I'm glad they kind of just wrapped it all up instead of having one of the legendary bad finales. I know people say The Sopranos, but I actually quite like The Sopranos ending personally. But I think the Game of Thrones one was just a generationally bad ending, and this
Yeah.
they nailed it. They landed it. Not nailed it, but they landed it.
You nearly said nailed it. I've got
Yeah,
you on tape there.
put me.
Yeah. I mean, we obviously do a lot of our job is based around guessing what's going to happen and stuff. And I do think we call like a shitload of what this finale was. I think as well, people would be more forgiving if it was either a binge or if it was weekly. Like there were some episodes of Welcome to Derry that weren't that good, but you always kind of had it where you're like, oh well, next episode is a week away. We won't mind that much. I think Netflix's problem is with them trying to milk stuff and split things into parts. They're kind of each volume isn't a complete season, so it doesn't feel like a complete thing. We had this with Wednesday season 2 where it's kind of getting going, but it doesn't really feel like a complete season. But it's marketed as being a season, and the gaps in between kind of build expectation and hype as well. Obviously, we only had a week gap between volume 2 and volume 3.
Yeah.
The month gap between volume 1 and volume 2 was there was a lot of expectations there.
The days they released it as well is just interrupting. You're like,
crazy.
I have to watch it because you don't want the spoilers. I mean, I got up at like 1 a.m. to watch it. I was like, I'm going to bed, get down early. Then you had the Christmas Day in America, but it was like Boxing Day for us. And you're just trying to stay offline. And then you watch it, and you're like, oh, this isn't that good.
Yeah, and I think picking those release because it was Thanksgiving in the US for volume 1 and picking those big release dates, every volume is like, oh well, it's going to be big, that they're doing this, it's something massive. Like next year I'm hoping that they don't do this, but I don't think they have a show that's this big that they can do that and split it into 3. But I mean, I worked in bars and restaurants for like 9 years, I think, and I used to have to work every single Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, New Year's Eve and stuff, and I got out of that to try and do this, and I've ended up working the whole thing. I'm sick of it. But yeah, I think the expectation there with how big of an event it was.
Yeah.
For me, it's one of those. But even Game of Thrones season 8, you know what? I've went back and watched that series, and knowing what's coming, I'm kind of like, well, it wasn't that bad. I'll get cancelled for saying this, but it wasn't that bad. So I don't know if I'm going to go back and watch this and just kind of enjoy it for what it is. But considering it was like getting up at 1 a.m. on New Year's Day, expecting this big thing, the way it just kind of unfolded, I think we were both online at the same time because we're hardcore. I mean, the other editors, they're not like getting up at 1 to watch this stuff. But I was messaging, you were like, oh, well, I'm going to get up and watch it. Do you want help? And I was like, I'll just do it myself. Everyone can fuck off and I'll just concentrate on the video. But you were up and I was messaging it like 2 o'clock saying like I'm 1 hour down and I don't know if this is going anywhere.
It wasn't the whole hour. I was like, this is, then you got to the end and I was like, there's like an hour, like 40 minutes left of the episode. I just thought, what are they going to do for 40 minutes? But the pacing was bad. They could have ended it they could have done it in 2 parts, but you know why they do it? They split it over the month so that if you get 3 months out of someone to subscribe. But it was a shame because, as you said, the first season was really tight. I watched it all before. I watched all of them again, even season 3, which I didn't like at the time. I was like, oh, actually, this isn't that bad. But then season 4 was like, I think it was like the first one that brought out the parts and the volumes.
Yeah,
and they did it really well there. Yeah, they really did it well with that. But this one, they kind of, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what the making of and what people say behind the scenes and that. It's going to be a lot of dissection.
I think the 2 worst offenders for me have been you and Squid Game. Because Squid Game was shot as 1 season, and they were like, no, it's actually, there's a season 2 that's 7 episodes long, and a season 3, and it's all the same game. And that was the worst way to handle that ever. I remember watching that thinking, agree. This was just 1 season, and you guys are just being greedy and splitting it up. You as well, season 5, I haven't actually finished that, because it just splitting it up just completely lost me. And that was a show that I was like massively invested in. I loved you. And that just kind of lost me.
Wednesday was like it as well. I just forget to watch it. When you're looking forward to one season, at least make it weekly. I feel like the weekly, like with
Yeah.
Fallout, is just the best way to do it. The original way that TV was.
Yeah, I think
Personally.
Amazon also do it really well when they drop 3 episodes and then do it weekly from there, because 3 episodes, it's a good starting point. It's a bit of a binge for you, but you're also locked in by the end of those 3 episodes normally, and then you're doing it weekly and it's like, okay, well, I've got something to look forward to. But yeah, even Welcome to Derry was kind of perfect weekly. It slowly built up. You had your expectations measured, because you were like, well, this episode's good. Oh, this one's all right. This one's okay. And then when you had a massive episode, it was like, oh, fucking hell. Like, can you imagine Volume 1 split up weekly where you have, first episode's okay, second's okay, three's okay, but 4 just goes fucking next level. And it's like, oh shit. I think that would have built a lot of hype, and then people would be more forgiving of Volume 2 if it was following on weekly right after that. And then for the finale, you'd have the expectations of like, well, it's all wrapped up nicely. So look, that's business models. Netflix are going to own every single studio at the end.
Yeah, we're going to have Warner
Brothers. Yeah. So that'll be how things are. But overall, your closing thoughts on Stranger Things in general after 2016, I think it was it?
Yeah, it was the first video, one of the first videos I put up on my channel.
Oh,
and people were like, you're high. You look like you're high. I was like, no, I've just binge watched a whole season and then did a review.
I've been up since 1 a.m. 15th of July, 2016. Yeah, nearly 10 years.
Alive. I remember discovering it. It was like, I'm a big fan of the Goonies, all like the Stand By Me, Lost Boys and that. And it just got lost in the sauce in too much of it turned into, I don't want to say, I don't like saying this word, but like a Hollywood cinema slop in a way. It definitely turned into too much of a Hollywood. It's not the kids riding the bikes over the moon like E.T. and that. It lost its 80s inspiration, I think. But overall, I think they did a good job of ending the stories, even if there are a trillion plot holes and that. I don't know.
And I even wonder if age is going to affect how much you enjoy this show. Like this, I mean, for a lot of kids, this will be like, 10-year-olds who started watching it in 2016. They'll be coming into their 20s now, where they're not as jaded and cynical about media, and this will probably be their first ever like big show. For me it was the X-Files, and I will watch the X-Files forever. But kind of growing, no matter what the X-Files finale had been, I would have been like, oh, it's an amazing show, amazing series. So I do see a lot of younger people being like, this is absolutely incredible, I love this show, whereas people who've been through people we've had like lots of different season finales that we've grown up with, and we're slightly more like, well, this is how it ranks. Breaking Bad for me is still the top, and even I was thinking before, even Better Call Saul is a really good finale that never gets the credit it deserves.
I think that is kind of underrated in the scheme, but it is the hardest thing to do to wrap up something that everyone's going to be happy with. I go back to it, but I think Sopranos just did it. That was it. They just cut off. I think the Mad Men one was controversial as well, but I
the Coca-Cola.
I thought that was.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I liked that one.
The whole series was basically saying how Coca-Cola, that advert, is the best advert of all time, and here's the story of how the guy who came up with it, which I thought was quite a clever way to do. It's like an advertising guy, basically the story is that he invents the best advert of all time, but they don't tell you like he's going to you just figure that out in the end. So we've kind of lived through lots of different shows that have had to wrap it up, and it is very difficult because there's so many gaps between seasons, and you spend so much of your life with it and thinking about it that you're going to come up with lots of different things. So in some ways I wish they did more, but in other ways I can totally see why it was so by the numbers and just doing what people were expecting, because you put a foot wrong anywhere, people are going to be on you. Like fucking Game of Thrones guys still getting shit for it. Ryan Johnson like messed with people's expectations, caused so much shit.
Ruined
Last
my year,
Jedi is
that
like
did.
I thought it was well, I'm not going to say
I hate it. I hate
cancelled.
I know it's just like trivial, but it just, for me, I've tried. I absolutely despise it. But
It's
That's
such
me.
like a cultural turning point in The Last Jedi. That is, you can put
Yeah,
a fucking fork in that and be like, right, this is when everything
yeah.
changed.
He thought it was
Um,
Harambe, but no, it was Snoke dying.
yeah, exactly. It was great. There was the light speed bit for me. I loved that bit. But then after,
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
was it actually good? It was the casino. Look, we'll not go on a Last Jedi rant, but that kind of
The
shows you
key,
where
the
things are.
locksmith. No, no, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not doing it again.
yeah. Lost was another one. Look, it is difficult to. I
I've
think.
warmed on that over years. Over the
Yeah,
years, I'm like, do you know what? How the hell were they going to do? How were they going to wrap it up? And
yeah.
I think as you get older, you start to appreciate that, like what they did with. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but what they did with the ending and that, and the
Yeah,
epilogue on the Blu-ray, I think was just perfect. I think
yeah.
in the end, I think you appreciate
So,
things.
so we've obviously lived through times where we've had, our Losts, we've had our Breaking Bads, we've had our Game of Thrones. I think so I am kind of where I am on my rating because these other things factor into it as well. And it's kind of
Mm,
like, look, they could have fucking disappointed a shitload of people,
yeah,
and I don't feel it was that big. And even like last week when people were complaining about Volume 2, I was like, we might be heading to a
yeah.
fucking Game of Thrones
I remember seeing you
situation
tweet
next
about
week.
that. I was like, yep, it's going to happen. It
Yeah.
feels like it's going to happen, but aggressively competent is the way to go. If you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know
Yeah.
how to end it,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
write
Feels
it simply.
feels kind of made by committee and mock and focus group tested.
Yes,
Like they
it
said,
does.
look,
It does feel like it's a kind
yeah.
of chat. They put all the ideas into Chat GPT and went, what will not piss people off?
Yeah, and this is the one it selected.
Yeah,
Callie dies, everyone else
yeah.
survives. 11 kind of dies, but there's
Does
a big
she?
theory
Doesn't
at
she?
the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think she died? I've gone back and forth on it so much. Really, even now, I'm still like, I don't know.
If they hadn't announced the spin-off, I would have been like, no.
Yeah.
But I think she has kind of survived in some way. I'd like his story of it,
Yeah.
but it does seem kind of convenient and that
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like the idea you can just think of it. It's what you would say, wouldn't you, to someone who want that,
Yeah.
because it was like Max and that wanted a nice ending and he gave it to him.
Yeah. 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 The only thing for me is how Mike knew about Callie. That is the only
Yeah,
way I'm
yeah,
holding up. Like, how did he know about it? And obviously, they show the power dampness as well. And she kind of just teleported out the van like randomly, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. So that's kind of concept. I think it's good though to have at least one dangling thread at the end of a season finale
yeah,
where
I
you're kind of
agree.
debating for years and years. But even people are like, due to the credits, like, is this all just one big Dungeons and Dragons game? Is it not real? Was none of it real? I'm like, mate, none of it was real. It was a TV show the whole time. So what if they say it was a Dungeons and Dragons game? So fucking what? None of it was real.
It's when Steve was like, was it Jonathan? He said that, have you got a basement with a boiler room? And I was like, oh my god, it's going to cut to them playing the game, and it all been thingy
in their heads. All kids
it's all been
again.
a campaign.
Especially when they were de-aging earlier in this, like in episode 1, I was like, oh, they're trying out this technology again for a reason. But they didn't go that way. And just having Mike kind of being like the writer, they took a lot of things from Stephen King in general. And that was just one of those things where I was like,
literally
they're
Bill.
doing Stephen King. Yeah, I think if they hadn't had Welcome to Derry released so close to it, it wouldn't be so like. I had someone on Twitter saying like, what do you mean they're completely different shows? And it's like, well, I think there's quite a lot of similarities. I think they're quite a lot of similarities.
They fight a spider monster in a cosmic spider monster. There's a Bill
period piece, gang of kids,
1989.
kind of pulling things from A Wrinkle in Time, just loads of shit. There's you could do a big 10-minute video about all the similarities.
There's one thing I'm surprised about.
The army wanting to fight communism using a evil alien thing. Loads of shit.
Yeah. They dropped the Lord of the Rings thing, I found, pretty quickly after season 1.
Yeah.
Probably because they couldn't just. I think they probably could have used like the Mirkwood and that but yeah, I always found it weird rewatching it. I was like, why did they just drop that? And they didn't really use Dungeons and Dragons other than the names out of things. I thought they'd have more. Yeah, but it's ended now, and that's it. That's the biggest show on the planet done.
I do kind of think they had lots of ideas, but they hadn't thought out how to conclude them. And you do kind of
Yeah.
see that in a lot of shows. Lost, of course, is the number one of like,
Yeah.
just come up with fucking ideas, throw them out there, we'll figure it out in 4 years' time. And they never get around to doing it. And I think this has done that. Not to the extent that Lost did, because Lost was fucking
Yeah.
insane at points. It was like,
I
I
love it,
remember
but
being like, yeah, four. I think they had 4 episodes left, and I was like, how are they going to wrap this all up?
yeah.
And yeah, there's still stuff now where it's dangling threads. Will they tackle it in a spin-off? Who knows? You know, maybe we'll see Dr. K again hunting 11 in Iceland or something. But yeah, that pretty much covers everything I wanted to talk about. I'm sure as soon as we hang up, I'll think of something else
Yeah.
clever to say. That was even better than anything I said here. So guys, if you're watching, you know I had a zinger in there. But yeah, that's kind of our thoughts. Thank you for joining me on New Year's Day as well, Matt. I know everyone's meant to have the day off, but I've been like, get in there. I want to talk to you about this. So I appreciate it. And
Yeah.
thank you guys for watching the video. You can follow Matt at Superhero Nexus on Twitter.
Yep.
Have a great 2026, everyone. Thank you for the support.
Bye.